What if the market is kind of showing you something, but assets a little bit like hidden? We are not observing that. So that may lead towards a scenario where the majority can again be wrong. So does the market actually suggest it's going to go higher or to the downside? RSI here on a short term broke to the downside, price is falling. So what are we looking further? Are we looking at a drop to 0.3, 0.2, or are we looking for the price to do something? Because the price and the history clearly shows you this is the possibility. So you can look at this and ask like, okay, that really makes sense, because if the price is doing this, when these indicators give you this idea, chances are it may repeat. So you are like, okay, how many times in the history does that happen? Okay, if this is the case on the positive scenario, can this be true when it's negative? So you look at that too, and even the negative point, that seems to be true. And you're now looking like, okay, let me take the probability. If you are looking for those, in this one you get 6 cross to the downside, and each time when the 20-day moving average, 21 moving average crosses the 200 moving average to the downside, the price was already close to the bottom or at the bottom. So out of these 6 red boxes, only one happened to go further, make another low. So if you stand with the probability, you are saying like, okay, 5 out of 6 shows you that you have a probability of moving further in a positive direction. So is this only valid for XRP as an asset? No, you can literally go on different assets. Say this is Bitcoin. This is a 3-day chart, so the volatility is comparatively lower. It's easy to look at this scenario, right? You cross to the downside here. Great, that's a 50 moving average. You cross to the downside, the price is close to the bottom. You cross to the upside, the price is close to the top. Now you cross to the downside. So what if the history is repeating? That is a hard point to say. Now here you don't have too much data points to make that decision. So can this be true, or you'll have to look for a lot of data points and a lot of data from the market? That's why we do this. This literally is like one sheet where you look for multiple assets and you combine all of these information into one. Can it be just, wait, don't do it now, or this is a good buy? That's a different thing. Like 200 charts for 35 assets in one sheet, this makes things easy. And this is available in the Patreon from the platinum level. So guys, if you are here in the market, you can have a look at that too. This is the scientific investor family, where the normal common retail guys learn how to become the next top 10% of the world. Now, when we talk about Bitcoin on a higher time frame chart like this, you tend to look at different aspects. So when you zoom in here, this is another one which we shouldn't miss. That's a scenario there, right? You cross to the upside, but the price did not continue higher from there. It literally took another 4 months before you made that. And what was the difference between these crosses here and the next one? Here, you are actually observing that the price is coming down to the moving average and bouncing each time, and it is following the 50-period moving average. So here, as soon as you break the 50-period moving average, now we know it's going to come back down to the 200-day moving average, right? Then you take the same concept, you come here into the XRP chart, a 3-day chart. Here you are looking for the 50-day moving average and the 200. Now you can either put 20 and 200 if you want to. Just you'll have too much volatility to look for whether that was a retest or not. But that's all good and great. You can do both. So when the 20 period cross to the downside, you can put it here, you weigh at the bottom. Now you did get a retest there. And if you really put on that 50-day moving average and look, when was that retest? Just at this time when the 50 was crossing the 200 to the downside. That is something to note. Why? Because when you go here, you're crossing that to the upside. So now we remove 21 and look at this. As soon as he crossed, you were just at the top or you just made the top. So now you got like, okay, let me put the 21. And you're like, okay, when the 21 crossed, you made the top and then you came back lower. Right? These are something important to know. Why? Because here we stand, we crossed to the downside here, both 50 and 21 crossing the 200 to the downside, and we are here. So if you ask that question like, okay, are we close to the bottom? Chances are higher that it can be, because one, now your 20-period moving average is crossing the 50 to the upside, and on a daily, this is literally interesting, your 20 already crossed the 200-day moving average, price is coming down. Now the first question is, how low can it go? One of the worst scenarios which we are looking at is the 200-period moving average in the history. So here, you were high, you dropped below the 20, you dropped below the 50, and then you came all the way to the 200-day moving average. Next one, you dropped the same, you went down. Now, we know what happened here. That's, not only technicals, that was completely fundamentals. Then this one, because that was the SEC case, the lawsuit filed. Now here, when we observe that this is crossing to the downside, the 20-period crossing here showed we already put in the bottom. The 50 crossing to the downside showed the retest is happening. Come to the current point here. The 20 already crossed the 200 to the upside. So we put in 1 and 1 to 2 tops. Now the 50 is going to cross the 200-day moving average. So if the history stands correct, then we may actually get one more bounce before we actually come back down to 0.4, or we kind of bounce from this range itself. We may not go to 0.4, we may go from 0.4243, we will bounce. That can be a big possibility. Now, these are on a daily 3-day macro kind of scenario. When you look at this, saying the short-term moving average right now is at 0.41, so maybe 0.42 can be touched. So if you are leveraged, make sure you understand these scenarios. And the fundamentals is so important at this point, because the dollar is, strong, super strong. It's right now going back to 113 and staying positive in all the global sense. But what makes it interesting is for those who own XRP, they are completely following this. Now, when you read this, you need to actually understand, what they put. Say, the lawsuit was filed here, but they are saying this first anniversary. So I'm like, okay, this is 2022 December, which is coming. So you need to maybe correct that. But when we are coming down here, you get one date. This is that, October 24th. So we will be able to actually get an edited version of the documents. Now, initially it will be sealed, so it won't be for us in the general public. But as we have John, who is a amicus curiae, he will actually give us the detail by this time, because that can be an edited version. But still, we will get an idea of where this is going. Because right now we already understand, iRemit went in, they filed the brief. Then we saw Tabjet doing the same. And right now, this is another one. So all of these are different blows, right? When we look at these, we are literally putting that things into perspective. Because history is being written all over the globe. Different nations, not the small countries. Advanced economies are adopting this. And as they move on and build this infrastructure when the market is not great, understand this, when the market slowly grinds back up, these are going to get priced in. So now, these kind of scenarios will always come. And if you go back at each bull run, you were getting a lot of bullish side saying buy, 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 buy. When you are close to the top, especially at that point, you get more. Same when you're going down and when you're close to the bottom, they kind of push you out, meaning you sell the units, new supply comes into the market, they absorb that. So right now, yes, the economy is not looking so great, but the question is, can the majority be wrong? So you go back to different charts here, you are looking at different companies, especially you are looking for Tesla, Netflix, and all other big guys, and saying Netflix right now is at 272. Yeah, they made some fundamental changes. I agree on that point with the new, lower tariff like 6.99, but the ads right now on the macro, this is happening. Now, I know when we came back to that 163 range, we talked about this, that historically, that was your support. Great. So this is a stock which was down 80% when we were talking about that. And ever since we are following that. Right now, one of these stocks bouncing back up does give you some idea. Now this bounce on a monthly, keep this noted, with this structure, which is an engulfing bullish candle and a continuation to the upside, shows something is happening here. If it's not us, someone is now bullish. So when the entire market, now maybe I'm wrong, but the entire market right now looks so negative. You know, the history, if it says correctly, when the road of investing is full of blood, that's when you should be greedy. And that point seems to be now. Right now, you go look at different assets and you ask like, okay, it does seem like, these went sky high. I agree on that point. These went sky high. Before they changed this, it went all the way up to like, 1,200, 1,250, after which it changed, right? They split. So now when we look at these, you need to ask that question, okay, are these all going up together? No. Most likely, no. What you want to look at is, does the market give you that idea whether it's going to bounce or not? Because you see here a piercing candle, more than 50% of the last candle when it has a higher momentum, which was a 3 candle to the downside, like soldiers, bearish soldiers, which got erased here. And then you broke the 20-day moving average on a monthly, which is super important to note. So when the stock market is at the support, we want to literally see whether this is going to break to the downside. Now, one of the possibility, maybe I'm completely off on this one, but one of the possibility which I see for Tesla is a bounce here and then down. This literally can be a possibility because that can be a head and shoulder pattern evolving. Or if you go on a weekly and ask this question like, okay, are we already getting one? That is also a possibility. But if you break to the downside, that's going to be bad. So some at one time go higher because it makes sense. It's $7 to buy a Netflix subscription service. The other one, Tesla, it's not. It's costly. So at this time, when the economy is so tight, you need to ask, whether you are going to buy the expensive stuff or try to reduce your expense and go for something which preserves your value, or at least which can increase your purchasing power, maybe in 3 months, maybe in 3 years. A lot of people are concerned about that. So if you are among them, right now you are looking for fundamentals. Literally, because this coming from a congressman is important when we are at that stage of elections. So the midterms is here. And by the time the midterm is over, we need to actually see some changes. And if the Republicans actually get hold of it, there's a lot of things which is going to change. And one of that can be like this, which does actually make sense because the taxpayers are funding all of these. And, they are trying to build more big and bigger team so that they can just go sue people. Enforcement without proper clarity. Now, why is that? As you look at all this, the price of these assets are being kicked down massively. You go look at Ether because you just see like, okay, if Fidelity is actually going to offer Ether to their customers, that's not small. Institutional money coming in is here. So when you actually see Ripple being sued by the SEC, it's not just something like that. It is kind of drama or planned, at least in a way that the institutions are prepared, their infrastructure is ready, and then you go on, they make fees from you, right? So they won't allow you to go in at that pace. But right now, if they are doing this, one of the biggest, I think they are like, 8 trillion, 10 trillion. So when we look at Fidelity, this is not something small, 4.5 trillion, not 8, 4.5 trillion. So then you have BlackRock and others who are big. So once they see these guys actually talk you down or talk you out of the market, and then they go hire people to manage these same assets, that's the hypocrisy in the market. And that's actually designed in a way that the normal common guys, they don't reach the financial freedom. They don't actually get to make money to become the next 10, 5, 1% of the world. And these don't happen in a day or a year. It takes time. This is a cyclical market you need to pay attention to. So right now, This is Ether. Great. So you go back to that question and ask yourself, if they are going to offer this to their clients, will they prefer a lower price before they actually offer this? Or will they prefer a higher price? Now, it's up to your conclusion. But what I think is, if the price is trending higher, if they want to buy in before the customers are coming, they want to buy at a cheap price. But when the customers are coming, they want the market to go higher because of the FOMO kind of come in. If you are actually going to look at a market and say, okay, I'm going to put 1% here, when it trends higher, you may put 2 or even 5. That is like more money and more position sizing, giving them more capital to manage. So that is going to be something worth looking at. Now, inside same structure for Ether, you also right now have this candle, but you did not manage to break higher. So if you happen to break this one to the upside with all these news, that is actually a good sign. Why? You crossed, again, the same theory which we were talking about. You crossed the 20, crossed the 200 here, you were close to the bottom. Then the 50 crossed the 200, you retested that bottom. So right now, you're slowly pushing the price up. You're trying to put in a higher low if you can manage to bounce here. With that bounce going above the 20-day moving average, this can get interesting because the change here is massive. It's actually like, big guys with a lot of money slowly coming on to these. Once they enter the crypto, Bitcoin, Ether, whatever, and then they get a little bit more clarity about different assets. And once you are in the market, now you are looking for something like this, where you're like, okay, your asset is not doing anything, but some of the others are holding when these are dropping, or at least some of them are going up. And they are like, okay, what's the daily volume? Can we put one position there? Is it actually worth hundreds of millions of dollars each day? Because they literally want to put money in and take it out when it's profitable. And they don't do mostly overnight trading. They are not high frequency trading bots. These are giant money, pot of money coming into the crypto space. So as they come into the market, be prepared, stay alert, but have a ton of patience. When the bull market starts, it does not end in a day or two. It grinds higher. You will see days when you go 30-50% to the upside, but you will also see consolidative moves in the market. So you really don't want to make moves when you are emotionally at the top. Make the decisions of your exits. Do the proper diligence for your portfolio, because this is the second wave. Keep that in mind. That's the biggest wave in a market cycle. So that being said, if you received value, please do hit that like and subscribe button. And guys, if you are looking for these updates for different assets, as we talked, you can look at the Patreon. The link is given in the description below. I'll meet you guys on the next video. Bye-bye.